People are still pining for the Snyderverse to return after the successful release earlier this year of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. As fans hope that we might one day get to see more of Zack Snyder's darker take on the DCEU, we thought it might be fun to reflect on just what villains we would love to see appear in this universe. Number 10. Grail. Grail is the daughter of Darkseid and is definitely someone I'd love to see make an appearance in the darker toned world of the Snyderverse. Grail is believed to be destined to cause massive destruction in the universe, and just in terms of what she is physically and magically capable of, she seems to live up to that potential, at least on paper. While we know Darkseid and his generals were teased, it's also possible that in the fight against Darkseid we could have been introduced to his daughter Grail. Grail was created by Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok and made her first appearance in the 2011 Justice League series in issue number 40, part of the New 52. Grail first appeared there in 2015, so she's relatively new in the comics, but also that might make her a great pick for the DCEU, and possibly the Snyderverse were it to continue. Number 9. Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd is an iconic and bizarre Flash villain, but I think Snyder could have been the one to pull this character off. Also, think of the pun wars that could happen between him and Snyderverse Flash. Endless pun wars. Gorilla Grodd is basically a genius level intellect possessing gorilla with psionic powers who also happens to sometimes have super speed powers as well. Gorilla Grodd is definitely an odd pick, but I also think that's what makes him great for the Snyderverse. I also feel like Snyder might even be able to bring some sense of humanity and relatability to Gorilla Grodd, allowing him to become more than just a two-dimensional villain on the big screen. Either way, the fights I'm sure between Flash and Grodd would both be epic and comical. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear us talk more Snyderverse, I know there are many Snyder stands out there, I see ya, then let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Mercy Graves. This might be a kind of weird pick considering that Mercy Graves is considered to be a smaller character overall, but I kinda want to see her in the Snyderverse. Mercy Graves made her first appearance in the comics in 2014 in Justice League, the series that started in 2011 with the New 52, technically the second volume of Justice League. She appeared in issue 31 and was created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, so it's kind of a no-brainer perhaps that I would love her. Mercy is Lex's personal assistant and bodyguard. She's ruthless, deadly, smart, and a complete badass, which is obviously why I would love to see Zack Snyder's take on her in the DCEU, as she aids Lex Luthor in his devious plots. At least that's what I imagine would happen. Number 7. Granny Goodness. We only got a sneak peek look at Granny Goodness in the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and it wasn't even an actor playing her, it was simply an artist's aunt whose likeness was basically used for a digital model. I personally would have loved to see what this character was like in the Snyderverse and to see her in action. We also got a deep look after that version came out of like her character design, and I think it looks awesome. If we do ever get to pick up from where we left off with the Snyderverse, then odds are good that we will get to see some version of Granny Goodness within it. However, the odds of that continuing are sadly feeling pretty slim at the moment. Maybe the events of the Flash film will make it possible for us to continue though, who knows. For those who are unfamiliar with Granny Goodness, she is one of Darkseid's generals, part of Darkseid's elite, and is generally the leader of Darkseid's female Furies, some of his most fearsome warriors. Number 6. Parallax. Oddly enough, I'd really be interested to see what someone like Zack Snyder would do with a strange character like Parallax. I know the first time around in the cinematic realm, that character was kind of a bit of a mess. Yes, I'm talking about the Green Lantern 2011 film, but that doesn't mean that Parallax couldn't be amazing, if the character was simply done right. We know that Snyder would have likely been inching his way closer to the Green Lanterns and eventually would have them show up as part of his vision for the DCEU, if his version of the DCEU were permitted to continue on. A Green Lantern was more prominently featured in the Snyder Cut of Justice League during the ancient fight against Darkseid, and Snyder originally had wanted Green Lantern John Stewart to be the one who confronts Batman at the end of the film instead of Martian Manhunter, but Warner Brothers basically said no, because they already had plans for both Hal Jordan and John Stewart in the works. So Parallax could very well be another great villain alongside mega threats like Darkseid that we would have seen in the future eventually, and that I personally would like to see. Number 5. Joker. We've seen Joker show up in the Snyderverse and learn that Zack Snyder had his own plans for Batman and his arch nemesis, the Joker. Jared Leto's Joker made his appearance in Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League at the very end when we got to glimpse into the potential dark future that Bruce Wayne had premonitions about via his dreams. For many fans, this was a far different take on the Joker in comparison to what we saw of Jared Leto's Joker in the Suicide Squad, and many people actually preferred this version to the previous one. I, however, was not really a massive fan of either of them, to be honest, but I can see the appeal of the Joker here, and I definitely would at least be interested to see what Zack Snyder had planned for these two, as I found Batfleck and the Joker's dynamic here to be very interesting. And to be honest, I do actually still find Jared Leto's Joker from the Suicide Squad to be interesting. Neither of these are really my bag, you know what I mean? Hopefully some of this version of the Joker could potentially carry on, and perhaps we'll get to see more into these dark apocalyptic versions of the characters in the Flash film. Because who knows where we're going through time. We're definitely going somewhere though, I think. Alternate realities, gonna travel, it's gonna be nuts. Number 4, Circe. When it comes to Wonder Woman's villains, we've got a few good ones, but I think we could get something really creepy, dark, and intense going for her rogues gallery within the Snyderverse. I would love to see Circe take to the stage in these films, acting as a main antagonist for Diana and also potentially for multiple heroes, perhaps even the whole League. Circe has also caused trouble for Batman and has tangled with Satana before in the DC animated universe, so who's to say we couldn't see her take on more than just Wonder Woman. Either way, I think she would be a cool addition to the Snyderverse. I also feel like Circe perhaps in a more horror genre take on Wonder Woman could be excellent, and with how dark the Snyderverse is, maybe we could throw in some element of the horror genre. To be honest, it kinda sounds like I want a Justice League Dark movie with this point, but maybe that is what I want. Circe is typically known for her ability to transform people into animals or animal hybrids, but that isn't all she does. She is a powerful, often immortal witch whose evil ways often lead her into conflicts with Wonder Woman and the Amazons of Themyscira in general. Number 3, Grodd. Grodd is a villain who I think would be really interesting to see in the Snyderverse, especially considering how much Cyborg got cut from that original theatrical release of the Justice League film. Wow, he got cut a lot. In the Snyder Cut, Cyborg was featured much more prominently, explored more deeply as a character, and just he did a lot more stuff. And I don't know about you, but I'd really love to see Ray Fisher's Cyborg in his own film taking on his own villain, if we could ever get Ray Fisher back as Cyborg. In this case, I think Grodd would be a really cool pick. Fans of the Doom Patrol series may know Grodd as the AI system that exists within the cybernetic parts of Jovian Wade's Cyborg. However, in the comics, Grodd was actually a villain, a virus with sinister intentions who basically worked with the crime syndicate, aiming to destroy and conquer Vic Stone. Number 2, Deathstroke. Deathstroke did make a brief appearance at the end of Justice League, and then a different brief appearance that was a little longer at least at the end of the Snyder Cut, where that scene featuring him goes quite a bit differently. We didn't really get to see fully though what Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke was like, and I for one would love to see more of what Snyder had planned for this character. I love Joe Manganiello and I love Deathstroke, and I was excited to see him hunt down and attempt to settle what seemed to be a very personal score with Batman, at least after I saw the Snyder Cut. Because in the original one he basically just shows up and then Lex is like, let's make a league of our own. Okay, definitely like the Snyder Cut take on that whole scene better. Number 1, Braniac. Braniac is another villain I would love to have had shown up in the Snyderverse, and I think Man of Steel fans would agree that Braniac would make an awesome villain for the DCEU Superman played by Henry Cavill, should we get a chance to continue his story. I want to see where Snyder would take Supes when it comes to his approach on Braniac. Braniac is a classic Superman villain whose first iteration appeared in Action Comics issue 242 in the 1950s. Since then, we have seen many different versions of Braniac come and go, with the most recent iteration sharing the name of his original version, Vril Dox. Braniac was actually the name of that character that was given to him on Krypton. It's like each world actually has had different names for this character, for Vril Dox. Often, Braniac is the one responsible for capturing the city of Kandor, the former capital city of Krypton, keeping it as a miniature in a bottle. Initially, Braniac bottled cities so that he might increase his own knowledge and his intellect. After Kandor was bottled, by the way, and taken by Braniac in the original continuity, now known as the Reality of Earth 1, but at the time it was the main, Kryptonopolis became the new capital city of the planet, which is a little weird, unless Kryptonopolis was renamed because it was now the capital. I just mean, if you have a city named Kryptonopolis, wouldn't you think it would be the name for your capital city? Like, Why would you even have that name unless it was the capital city? It's just so weird. I guess Kandor had like really good stuff that they made, or it was really popular, or the government was there. I don't know. I don't know enough about Kryptonian life and what the planet was like. Gonna have to read into that more. What villains would you have loved to see in the Snyderverse? Are you still hoping that it will return? What heroes would you like to see appear in that universe or return in that universe if it were to return? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I am your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you to stay nerdy, YouTube.